Someone just disrespected you in the most blatant way. Your blood is boiling, your body is tense, and 1,000 sharp responses are fighting to burst out of your mouth. You feel insulted, hurt, and probably angry enough to want to teach them a lesson. This is the moment that defines who you really are. Not what they did to you, but how you choose to respond will reveal your true character in this situation. This moment matters more than you think because it exposes your real strength or your lack of self-control. I'm not here to teach you to be a doormat or swallow every injustice. I'm going to show you how to respond wisely to protect your dignity, maintain respect from others, and most importantly from yourself. Marcus Aurelius, who faced countless enemies and criticism as emperor, warned us. The person who gets angry has already lost. This doesn't mean you should be weak. It means you need to be stronger than what your emotions are pushing you to do. The difference between a powerful response and a powerless reaction lies in understanding what actually serves your dignity versus what just feels good in the moment. Most people confuse emotional release with strength, but true strength lies in choosing your response rather than being controlled by your impulses. Today, I'm revealing 5 things you should never do when someone disrespects you. The third one is particularly crucial because 99% of people do it automatically, and it completely destroys any chance of maintaining your dignity in conflict. Avoid these mistakes and you'll win without even fighting. Now let's begin. 1. NER, react immediately. Number 1, never react immediately. The first reaction is usually the worst reaction. When someone disrespects you, that immediate surge of anger, hurt, or indignation will push you to say or do things you'll regret later. The heat of the moment is when you make your biggest mistakes. When your emotions hijack your intelligence and turn you into someone you don't recognize, this immediate reaction is exactly what disrespectful people are counting on. They want to see you lose control, become emotional, and respond poorly. Your immediate reaction gives them exactly what they're looking for, proof that they can affect you, control your emotional state, and make you act beneath your standards. I once watched a colleague get publicly criticized during a team meeting. The criticism was unfair and clearly designed to embarrass him in front of everyone. His immediate reaction was to defend himself aggressively, raising his voice and listing all his accomplishments while attacking the critic's own track record. What could have been a moment where the critic looked petty and unreasonable instead became a spectacle where my colleague looked unprofessional and out of control. Later, he realized that a simple pause and calm response would have made the critic appear unreasonable while he maintained his dignity. Instead, his immediate reaction made him look exactly as unprofessional as the person attacking him. The entire room remembered his emotional outburst, not the unfair criticism that triggered it. Immediate reactions are driven by emotion, not wisdom. When you react instantly, you're essentially letting their disrespect control your behavior. You become reactive instead of responsive, which means you've handed them power over your actions and emotional state. You're no longer choosing your response. Your emotions are choosing for you. The problem with emotional reactions is that they're usually disproportionate and rarely address the actual issue. You might say something more hurtful than what they said to you, escalate the situation beyond what it needs to be, or reveal information about yourself that you'll later regret sharing. Immediate reactions often make the situation worse, not better. Epictetus taught us one of the most powerful concepts in human psychology. Between stimulus and response lies your freedom. That space, the pause between what happens to you and how you respond, is where your true power lies. Immediate reactions eliminate that crucial space for choice, wisdom, and dignity. When you react immediately, you're operating from your reptilian brain, the part that evolved for physical survival, not complex social situations. This part of your brain sees disrespect as a physical threat and responds with fight, flight, or freeze. But disrespect isn't a physical threat that requires immediate action for survival. It's a social situation that benefits from thoughtful response. Here's how to protect yourself from this mistake. The moment you feel that surge of anger or hurt, take 3 deep breaths before saying anything. This isn't about counting to 10 like a child. It's about giving your prefrontal cortex time to come online and engage your wisdom rather than just your emotions. Ask yourself a crucial question during this pause. What response serves my dignity best? Not what response feels good right now. These are often completely different answers. What feels good in the moment is usually telling them exactly what you think of them. What serves your dignity is maintaining your standards regardless of their behavior. Another powerful technique is to imagine yourself watching this interaction from the outside. How would you want the person you respect most to handle this situation? What would make you proud of your response when you think about it later? This perspective helps you choose wisdom over emotion. Remember that your initial emotional reaction is information, not instruction. The anger tells you something important happened that violated your values. The hurt tells you that you cared about this person's opinion or treatment. These emotions are valuable data, but they're not commands you must obey immediately. The pause is where your power lies. In that space between their disrespect and your response, you have the opportunity to choose who you want to be in this moment. You can choose to be someone who responds with wisdom, dignity, and strength, or someone who simply reacts with emotion. Controlling your timing is crucial for maintaining dignity. But our second mistake destroys your credibility and makes you look desperate for validation. 2. Envy or try to change their mind. Number 2, never try to change their mind. Arguing with someone who disrespects you is like wrestling with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. When someone shows you disrespect, don't waste your precious energy trying to convince them that they're wrong, that you deserve better treatment, or that they should apologize. You cannot reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. This is one of the most common mistakes people make when faced with disrespect. They immediately launch into explanations, justifications, and arguments trying to make the other person see their perspective. They present evidence of their worth, list their accomplishments, or explain why the disrespectful treatment is unfair. But here's the truth. Someone who chooses to disrespect you already knows these things and has decided they don't care. I watched a friend spend over an hour arguing with someone who had insulted her work in front of colleagues. She tried to explain why the criticism was unfair, presented examples of her successful projects, and demanded an apology for the inappropriate public attack. The other person not only refused to apologize, but doubled down on their criticism and became even more disrespectful. My friend looked increasingly desperate as she begged for acknowledgement of her worth. And by the end, she had weakened her own position tremendously. What my friend didn't realize was that the moment she started trying to change their mind, she had put her dignity up for negotiation. She was essentially asking for permission to feel respected, which automatically gave the other person power over her emotional state. She transformed from someone who deserved respect into someone who was begging for it. When you try to change their mind about your worth, you're operating from a fundamentally flawed premise that their opinion of you matters more than your own. You're suggesting that their recognition is required for your value to be real. This puts you in the position of a defendant, trying to prove your innocence to a judge who has already decided you're guilty. People who disrespect you often do so because it serves their psychological needs, not because they genuinely believe you lack worth. They might be jealous of your success, threatened by your competence, or simply need to put others down to feel better about themselves. Your achievements and worth aren't the issue. Their character is. No amount of evidence will change someone's mind when their disrespect comes from their own insecurities or malicious intent. Marcus Aurelius wrote how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. The Roman emperor understood that other people's opinions, especially negative ones, are simply not your business. When you try to change their mind, you're making their thoughts about you your primary concern, which gives them control over your peace of mind. The act of trying to convince someone to respect you actually demonstrates the opposite of what you're trying to prove. Confident, valuable people don't need to argue for their worth. Their value is self-evident and doesn't require external validation. When you launch into explanations and justifications, you signal that you believe their opinion has merit and power over your self-worth. Here's where you're positioned once clearly and calmly. Then stop engaging with their disrespect. You might say something like, "I disagree with your assessment," or "That's not an accurate representation of the situation," and then move on. Don't elaborate. Don't provide evidence. And don't wait for their acknowledgement. You're not trying to convince them. You're simply setting the record straight for anyone else listening. Focus on your response, not their recognition of your worth. Your goal isn't to make them admit they were wrong. It's to maintain your dignity regardless of their behavior. When you stop trying to change their mind, you reclaim your power and demonstrate the very confidence and strength they were trying to undermine. Remember that respect freely given is the only kind worth having. Respect that you have to argue for, beg for, or prove you deserve isn't respect at all. It's conditional acknowledgement that can be withdrawn at any time. Your value doesn't require their validation, and your dignity doesn't need their permission to exist. Your worth is not determined by their recognition of it, and your peace of mind should never depend on changing someone else's opinion of you. Seeking their approval damages your position. But our third mistake is what most people do automatically, and it completely destroys any chance of maintaining the upper hand. If you've ever wasted hours trying to convince someone who disrespected you that you deserve better, comment "worth proven" below to remind yourself that your value doesn't need their validation. Now let's move to the next point. Number 3, never match their 3. NEVR, match their energy. Energy. When you match their energy, you become them. This is the mistake that 99% of people make automatically when faced with disrespect. And it's the most devastating error you can commit because instantly erases any moral or social advantage you might have had in the situation. Don't mirror their tone volume or emotional intensity. Don't get louder because they're loud. Don't get ruder because they're rude, and don't stoop to their level because they've gone low. The moment you match their energy, You validate their approach and become part of the problem rather than the solution. Most people think matching energy shows strength. That raising your voice when someone yells at you demonstrates you won't be pushed around. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of power dynamics. Matching their energy doesn't show strength. It shows that you're controlled by their behavior. It proves they have the power to dictate your emotional state and behavioral choices. During a heated discussion about a project deadline, a team member became aggressive with me, raising his voice and using a condescending tone. Every instinct I had screamed at me to match his energy, to raise my voice back, to become equally aggressive, to show him I wouldn't be intimidated. Instead, I made a conscious choice to do the exact opposite. I deliberately lowered my voice and spoke even more calmly than I had before. The contrast was so stark that everyone in the room immediately noticed. While he appeared out of control and unprofessional, I appeared composed and reasonable. His aggressive behavior became the focal point of the room's attention, not the project issue we were supposed to be discussing. By the end of the meeting, colleagues were privately commenting on his poor behavior while respecting how I had handled the situation. When you match their energy, you create what psychologists call symmetrical escalation. Both parties keep raising the stakes until the situation spirals completely out of control.